Today, I want to talk about a topic that gets in the way of our thoughts about reinvention. It impacts the whole gamut, whether you decide to start from where you are and move in an entirely different direction, or decide that you want to shift up one aspect of what you're doing. Today's topic is about clearing the biggest hurdle to reinvention. And the best way I can illustrate this is with a personal story. It used to be that when it came to getting things done, there were very few people who could match me. When people would be amazed at what I could accomplish, I used it as a badge of honor, and I was actually quite proud of myself. I remember being very competitive about it. There was no one that could out-prepare me. Give me a task, and I would have researched it thoroughly, come up with every imaginable scenario, listed the pros and cons of every alternative, and made recommendations on the best way to move forward. I would have a meeting before the meeting to know exactly what everyone was thinking. I had flow charts, customer research, and solutions created by design thinking. Now, that was only a few years ago when talking about how busy you were was code for, look how important I am. What so many people who did this believe is what it really said is, I have so much to do because I am so valuable and I'm the only one who can do it. Or we would play the victim or martyr. I have so much to do that I'm working until the wee hours of the morning while the rest of you get to sleep. After doing a lot of work in this area, I came to realize it was a combination of being a control freak so I could have a good idea of what the outcome would be to avoid any chaos and anxiety, or trying to tell myself how valuable I was to the organization and no one could do what I did any better than me. Today, I look at that message of look how much I can get done. And instead, I meet it with my curiosity of why do you feel like you need to do all of that? Is it because you can't delegate? I had that challenge. Did you know that working smarter does not necessarily mean working harder? Or is it a defense mechanism so you can feel in control? So today, part of my straight talk to you is asking, have you ever considered that you might be on the road to burnout, but you haven't slowed down enough to listen to your body screaming at you? What we know now is we've realized the impact of mental health and wellness and how it needs to become a priority before we crash and burn with little recovery. It's time for a different perception of rest. Rest isn't something that happens when you get everything done or a punishment when you don't want to go to bed, but rather it is what is necessary to put fuel in your tank for the next day. It's putting the oxygen mask on so you can give your best, not only to others, but also to fully honor yourself. Self-care is no longer about massages and manicures or even bubble baths or reading a book. It's about going beyond to do things that bring you joy. It's the feeling where your heart swells as if it was able to grow 3 sizes in one day. Caring for yourself is about recognizing your emotions rather than bearing them away. You allow yourself space to consider what those emotions mean. It's time to feel into them and have a process to decondition and learn how to regulate your nervous system. It's really necessary to anchor yourself so you can stay grounded. Also, many people are aware of the power of words we use. They aren't merely words. They can become a reality because when you speak words, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and what it is that you think. So what you think we know can make you sick. And this is why it is called disease. What you feel can do more damage if we don't make it a priority to do something about it. So instead of stuffing our emotions away by self-soothing them with late night online shopping binges or working so much that we don't have to feel anything, or escaping into social media or numbing our pain with substances, let's take time to pause. Today, I'd like you to challenge yourself by possibly considering what's really going on in our bodies and what are the stories that you're telling yourself. Now, you may ask, where do these stories come from? These stories live in your subconscious mind, which, by the way, makes up 95% of your brain. The other 5% is the conscious. That's what we're aware of. So it's no wonder that we can't access these other thoughts readily. A lot of the programming of your subconscious mind took place by the time you were 6 or 7 years old, which means that most of them are buried away. So to explain, I'd like to reference Dr. Bruce Lipton, a cell biologist lecturer and author of the book, The Biology of Belief. He explains that our brains are particularly programmable before age 7 because children of this age are generally in a different, more receptive brainwave state than adults. Our brainwaves change throughout life like this. From when we're born to when we're age 2, we have delta waves, which are associated with the deepest levels of relaxation and restorative healing sleep. From age 2 to 6, children in this age range have an increasing period of theta wave state. And what you should know is theta waves are most closely associated with hypnosis and deep meditation. So it's when information is on the fast track to the subconscious mind. It's a repository for memories, emotions, and sensations. And this is why children before the age of 7 absorb everything around them, and it goes directly into their subconscious. What they see when they try to make sense of it and create stories is they're trying to feel safe. So what it means is that we live the rest of our lives based on the beliefs that were instilled in us by other people before we were even 7 years old. Age 7 to 12 is alpha waves, and those tend to dominate when we are awake, alert, and actively thinking. And by age 12, we spend most of our waking lives in beta state, which is a type of brainwave that occurs when the brain is active and engaged in mental tasks. So the reasons we can't get out of our own way are often things that we aren't even aware of what happened. This leads to behaviors such as feeling we need to be perfect and perform in order to feel valued and loved. It could be people-pleasing, so we'll be accepted as part of a group or seen as someone who needs to be known to be indispensable. You might be highly productive and think of yourself as a high performer because we want to feel worthy. Perhaps you avoid doing what needs to be done. We procrastinate because we don't want to feel the painful emotions that may come from doing the thing that is waiting on us. Maybe it's the project that it's going to take a lot of brain power. It has so many steps, or you feel like it will keep going on forever, and you just don't want to feel that way. Then there are people who explain everything away. They have a reason why things will or will not work. They hyper-rationalize so much that they have what we call analysis by paralysis. Then there are those who are restless. You know who you are. You start things and then you don't finish them. You love that thrill of excitement and dopamine hits at the beginning of the creative process. And then when things start to get hard or boring, you leave it to come back later. But let's get realistic. Often you don't. Then there are people who love to control everything. Remember that description of me at the beginning of today's episode where you try to control everything there is? There's nothing really to be fearful of. It keeps that agitation down and calmness in your nervous system. Then there are those who are just waiting for things to go wrong. They feel everywhere they turn. They look at past and see evidence that things didn't work out. And one of the reasons is they believed that it wouldn't really work out from the start. And finally, there are those people who feel like the world is against them. No matter what they do, no matter how hard they try, they become the victim and they just can't win. I also like to speak to a segment of people who get in their own way by hiding from the rest of the world. They're self-critical about showing their face online, sharing an opinion on social media, or even creating a blog post or appearing on a podcast. I'm a prime example of this. It was only 3 years ago when a friend challenged me to ask me why I was afraid of making a video. I started to think about who I was hiding from, and it ends up that person was me. I always felt like whatever I said, I could have done it better. No matter what I wore, I could have made a better selection. No matter how I looked, I didn't look as good as I may have 5 years ago. And this fear of visibility holds us back and limits who we can become. It's also limiting your business when the people who are looking for someone like you can't find you because you aren't accessible. I know people who won't even like a post on social media because they don't want others to see their name associated with the content or the person whose post that it is. If this sounds like you, I want you to think about this. The people who need you are looking for you, and they can't find you if you aren't showing up. So what does this have to do with the idea of reinventing yourself? When you are the hurdle, you are limiting yourself. No matter if you're doing a complete restart or bringing your old self along, or if you're making a minor adjustment and doing just one thing differently than the day before. Reinvention is more than understanding how to build your business foundation, what to sell, who needs it, and having a message that connects the two. You have to know how to handle the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. This is more than a job. And for it to work, you have to discover a deep why you are doing it. So you will have the grit to push through when times get tough, when the cash flow isn't coming, when you don't make offers or ask because you're afraid of the answer being no, when you settle and work for a person that you knew was throwing up red flags, but you chose to ignore them, when you aren't confident enough to post on social media for fear of what someone might think of you. Know that business can be impacted by all of these things, but often the biggest hurdle in the way is based on what is happening in the space between your ears. Next week, I'll be back with a very special guest who has been very impactful to make me think differently about what's getting in the way. And if you happen to struggle in this area, feel free to reach out. I offer the Mental Fitness Advantage experience that in only 7 weeks will give you the basics of how to get out of your own way. It starts with becoming aware of which of the saboteurs you are allowing to control your narrative and arming yourself with a few techniques to build neural pathways and calm your nervous system. Reach out with a DM and I'll share all the details that will help you become more productive, have better relationships, and reduce some of the stressful situations we get ourselves in. I hope you found what you needed so far, and until next week, I want you to do this. Honor your passion and take it as far as it goes. Show up for yourself and others. It's how you live out your purpose. And live life to the fullness with a personal brand of integrity. It's how you will live a life of so much more on the way to your legendary self.